What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy New Year. Can't believe we're 1 week into 2023 here. If I think about this new year so far, it's been an interesting one. And yeah, when I say interesting, I mean interesting in the kind of way of we live in interesting times. So more on that to come for sure. Been a couple of weeks since I've gotten this going, but I think that's also part of today's story. So I want to jump right in because I know that this time of the year, you kick off any new year, you got to be thinking about what your goals are. It's just guaranteed. If you're someone that's got motivation, inspiration, accomplishments you want to check off the list, of course you're thinking about the new year to get momentum, to get the big projects done, to get all those hopes and dreams accomplished. So I took an interesting look at starting off this year. And again, anybody who knows me knows that I love professional development. I love personal growth. I love all those aspects of trying to figure out what's the best version of myself that I can become and how do I get there. So I took a look at a lot of different people's thoughts, all the experts out there. Think about all the leaders in the industry, Brendon Burchard, Tony Robbins, Craig Ballantyne, you name it, Jay Shetty, Robin Sharma, more and more people. So I like to try to take a look at what's out there and then think about synthesizing, what did I learn? What's the best of the best have to say about how to have the best year of your life? So what I did was I took everything I learned, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kick that back to you in the form of 3 questions that I think are great for you to ask yourself. It's the questions I've been asking myself, and I think that's the best way for me to give you some insights and some things to kick around to not just start off this month on the right note, but really kick off your year. So here we go. Number one, first question that I want to put out there is, what are you moving toward in 2023? I'll say that again. What are you moving toward in 2023? So traditionally, a lot of goals, when you think about them, you hear other people, you keep your ears open. And I'm sure in the last week or two, you've talked to a lot of people that have different ideas about what they're going to try to do this year. And there's a theme and a pattern to it. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to stop smoking. I want to stop missing deadlines at work. I want to stop getting distracted during the course of the day. I want to stop yelling at my kids or my spouse. So if you listen to just the ones I rattled off right there, do you hear a theme? Most of the time, I think that what people think about are trying not to do things, stopping doing things that they want to move away from. And there's nothing wrong with that. It makes sense. Of course, it's good to do all those things that I just talked about. If you remove those activities, you remove those behaviors, sure, you're going to be a better version of yourself. You're going to be a better person. And that's cool. But when I think about 2 weeks down the road, a month down the road, 3 months down the road, the goals that move you away from things really move the needle. Does that really fire you up and get you inspired? I would argue no. And I'm not saying that you can't accomplish those things and they're not worthwhile, but I think flipping that is so much more powerful. What are you moving towards? Which is cooler? Which is more exciting? Stopping doing things or gaining momentum? Moving towards the things that are the most exciting, the most inspirational, the most motivational aspects of your life. So for me, I really like this idea to think about, what am I moving toward in 2023? And that can mean any domain you think about. Could be health, could be career, could be financial, could be relationship, could be spiritual. What are you moving toward in 2023? So that's my first challenge for you, is to think about that question and to dig in a little bit to uncover what matters or what you want to move towards this year. So that's number one. Question number 2. Who are you fighting for in 2023? Who are you fighting for in 2023? So let's think about that question. Again, most goals are going to be for you. And that makes perfect sense. You live your own life. You're the centerpiece of your own universe, and everything you have going on between the ears is exactly where your focus is going to be. That being said, a lot of times I feel like what happens is you set out a goal, and sure, it's for you. Then in February or March, when the gloss wears off and the novelty of that new goal of whatever you set is no longer there, that motivation wanes. It's a little bit harder to keep the focus, a little bit harder to keep the spirit alive. So what happens? Well, sometimes you pack it in a little bit early and you decide that maybe that wasn't the goal that needed to be accomplished. However, when you can connect your goals to someone bigger than yourself, now you have a fighting chance to do something a little bit more special. Last year, I made a health goal to be in the best shape of my adult life. And of course, first and foremost, that was for me, without a doubt. But it wasn't just for me. I wanted to show up to be the most energetic, vibrant person that I possibly could for my family. I wanted to be able to look good and walk tall and feel confident for my wife. I wanted to be able to bring it with confidence every day. And like I said, vitality and energy and vibrancy for my team at work, for all the people I work with and serve. So yes, of course, the goal first and foremost was for me, but who was I fighting for? All those other people. So to me, if you can think about what's that greater level, if you kind of chunk up to that one level up and realize, is there someone you're fighting for in this goal that's going to serve not just you, but them as well? I think you've got a better chance to get to the promised land. So that's question number 2. Who are you fighting for in 2023? So now we come to the big one. Question number 3. What do I need to learn in 2023? What do I need to learn in 2023? This is the big one, folks. So here we sit right now. It's first week of January here, and you can see the Christmas tree still up in the background. We got our traditional Snoopy topper on top of the old Christmas tree. And this stuff's coming down today as we're moving forward and putting the tree out for recycling this coming week. But it was an incredible, incredible week of learning. But I will tell you, it was also arguably the most challenging, the most emotional, the most heart-wrenching week I've had in decades. So let me tell you why. If you listen to the prior episode, you know how much I talked about how what the centerpiece of our life was. We adopted a rescue puppy named Bailey. 8 months old, lab golden retriever mix, and boy, was he something. He had so much energy and he brought out so much joy in our lives. He reminded me of that golden retriever Ben I had growing up as a kid for 12 years. He reminded me of that camaraderie I think they used to get from coaching wrestling, just being around people. And finally, I think it was just seeing the love among our family in the quiet moments, and just watching my girls get up and hug that dog every day just did something special for me. You also take those couple of years of being around people less with COVID, and he filled an incredible void that I didn't even know was there. But there was another side to it. So over the course of a couple of weeks, there were 2 incidents where I was not there on a walk. And this is a high energy, high drive dog. First time was when I had nearly 102 fever. I subsequently, the next day, was going to be diagnosed with COVID, as the rest of my family had all tested positive in the days prior. And I was feeling terrible. So my wife took the dog for a walk. Well, unfortunately, what happened was about 15 minutes later, my daughter came screaming through the house saying, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, come quick. The dog's biting mommy." So my heart stopped, raced out into the cold and rain. And my wife is in tears, as is my daughter, that on the walk, dog got hyped up and thought he was playing, started playing tug of war in the leash and jumped and bit her on the arm repeatedly. We got home. She was very emotionally shaken, understandably, for a several-minute episode, and subsequently had bruises all over her arm. So at that moment, I felt terrible. Felt terrible physically, felt terrible, much more importantly, mentally and emotionally, because yes, even though I was extremely sick, I wasn't there to protect my family. And now I knew my wife was not feeling safe around this dog. So fast forward 2 weeks. We had a couple of day break where originally I was going for a 3-day office on site, and we were already had scheduled having our trainer board the dog for 3 days. Give us a chance to catch our breath after this episode. And when the trainer came back, he gave us some new strategies, which is fantastic. Showed us a couple of techniques, how to walk the dog more effectively, gave us a better collar, better leash, and some commands to start getting him up to speed. So the next week was great. The puppy was exponentially better. Our lives were still tense. It was still difficult. Still walking him 25,000 plus steps a day, but we were moving towards the right place. And my wife was slowly getting past this episode. Well, what happened? My girls, I'd started to engage. My twin daughters are 12, and I started bringing them with me on walks. We practiced. They would take the leash. They would work with him, and they were doing a fantastic job. We did it a half a dozen times. So then when the time came, that in-between week of Christmas and New Year's, always tough. Our office was open for a couple of days. I worked from home. And so on that Wednesday and Thursday, I'm working. So again, still recovering from COVID, still trying to get that extra sleep. And so slept in a little bit later. And rather than doing the typical hour and a half of 2 walks before 8 o'clock so I could start my workday on time, slept in a little bit later, did the walk around 7 o'clock. And so what we tried to do was, the plan was the girls were going to take Bailey on his 9 o'clock walk, which would be the second walk of the day. So the first day, it went beautifully. They brought their phones, went out for 45 minutes, and I thought, fantastic. Everything is according to plan. Well, the next day, not exactly the same plan. My sister-in-law came with us. I should say my sister-in-law came with them because I was not on this walk, and she also brought her dog. Now, as you're listening to this right now, you're probably saying, this probably didn't go well. Well, you're absolutely right. Added a couple X factors in that I hadn't really thought through. So at some point, 40 minutes into the walk, when a third dog came across the street, they tried to get our dog under control. He got excited, and there was a several-minute episode once again where he was jumping and trying to bite our girls, got their jackets a little bit ripped up, and my sister-in-law stepped in, and God bless her, trying to take control. She got bitten on the arm repeatedly, both arms. Cuts on her arms, drew blood, and I get a frantic phone call in hysterics, and I know immediately what's happened. So I race over there, and everyone's in tears. My sister-in-law looks like she's in shock, and there's the dog, as calm as can be, but my girls are crying. They're visibly upset. So I get the dog in the car. Girls come home. At that point, I know we're in a completely different place. My wife calls me and just says, what are we doing here? So in the very short term, I try to have the calm and presence to try to not make any emotional, illogical decisions. First thing to do is, of course, make sure the family was okay. So we try to think about all the options. Girls were okay. My sister-in-law was okay. At the end of the day, girls came back in, hugging the dog, weren't showing fear, and everybody was none the worse for the experience. But as I talked to my wife, she asked the $1 million question: what are we doing here? Are we going to wait for strike three? So over the next couple of days, we try to talk it out. We had a possible plan that if we decided we were going to keep the dog, he was going to go away for 3 weeks and have training and come back fully ready to go so we could be trained and move forward. So we try to come to that difficult decision to see that that might be the only path forward if we wanted to keep the dog. But on New Year's Day, my wife just had further thoughts and just said, I don't think we can do this. And I knew deep down that she was probably right. So over the next 2 days, it was a heart-wrenching, completely gut-punching experience of saying goodbye to a dog. We had to get everything ready, drive 8 hours round trip to the rescue to bring him home, and everything you can possibly imagine about the emotional experience of that trip was everything and more. I cried more in 2 days than I had in 30 years. And my first thought when all of this was happening, when we really came to that decision on New Year's Day, was that I failed. I said it over and over again. And I felt like such a failure because of the 150 walks I took with this dog, the 2 times I wasn't there is when this happened. So I felt responsible. I was not able to provide safety for everybody. And now, because I wasn't there, the centerpiece of our family was going home. And if I'd only been there, I could have made it right. I could have avoided this, and this wonderful, excitable, wonderful dog could have stayed with us. Yes, he was going to require a lot of work. And yes, we needed to make sure this behavior never happened again. But there was something very lovable about him. And all in his great quiet moments, we knew he was the best. So I wore that. I was completely broken, just pounding myself with that negative self-talk and that defeated feeling that I failed. I failed. Said it over and over again. And I don't know about you, but I'm personally guilty, and I'm sure that maybe perhaps you are too, of saying things to yourself and having negative emotions about yourself that you would never say to another human being. You know, why is that? Why is it that we do that to ourselves? Well, I did it, and I completely wore it. And as I got through that day and the 20 or 30 times on the way to the rescue and on the way back where we second guessed it and thought about turning around and bringing him home, you know, the half hour in the parking lot saying 15 goodbyes in and out of the car, on the way home thinking about going back and picking him up and just bringing him home and making it work, knowing that we couldn't. I said to myself, there's got to be a path forward. There's got to be some kind of lesson from this that's going to make this experience something I can hang my hat on. And so here's what I concluded. Instead of concluding that I failed and that the reason why this didn't work out was because I missed those 2 walks and I put out 99.9% of the effort, but I just couldn't get to 100% there, I had a different conclusion. The lesson that I needed to learn, and as I thought about it, was if I went back to the beginning, was there another path forward? Well, how did this all go down in the first place? On a Monday night, my aunt let me know about this opportunity for this rescue. On Saturday of that week, we were driving out to Pennsylvania. We brought home a puppy. My wife and I, we talked about it a little bit, but we didn't really go through the paces. And I really didn't work through in a collaborative way to make sure that she was fully on board. She had reservations about getting a dog, always had reservations. And in an effort to make sure that we did it and not be paralyzed by indecision, I pushed it forward. Had I had to do over again, I would have taken that time to really work through with her that she was in a comfortable place. Because what happened? When we brought that dog home, and all of a sudden we're there day one in that first week, and he was, gosh, love him to death. But he was a lot of work, and he was just wild on walks. It was like trying to walk a horse with the original leash that I had, pulling me around all over Madison area. It wasn't easy. Him jumping on things, him jumping on people, him trying to eat any single thing that was an open area. It was difficult. So what happened? Instead of trying to work together to do more, I thought, let me take on more myself. Let me do more to make sure that if I handle everything, I will take all the heartache and extra adversity out for everybody else. And until everybody else catches up, until we get to a point of stability, then I'll work together with everybody and we'll all share some responsibility. So the lesson I needed to learn was I need to ask for help. Instead of trying to do everything myself, I need to learn how to build better bridges. I need to learn how to collaborate better. And when things go tough, rather than having the default of, Mark, do 100% of everything yourself, I need to figure out ways where I get more information, where I get more help from others, where I plan more effectively and use the people around to make sure that we work together as a team. Because I know, had I done that, we may have had a different outcome. Now, sure, it's possible these incidents may have occurred, but there's also probably a different path that could have occurred. Had I built those bridges earlier, had I learned how to ask for help, and had there been better communication all the way throughout. And I know that as painful as that lesson was, as brutal as that lesson was, I now know that maybe that was the most important lesson I needed to ever learn in my life. And you sure as hell better believe that I'm not going to make that mistake again in 2023 or beyond, because I know the heartache that my family just went through. And I also believe that now that I've internalized that lesson, this may open possibilities for me in all areas of my life, in family, in career, in health, in relationships. Who knows? But for me, this was the lesson that I needed to learn in 2023. And now that I've got it, I think there's a world of possibility out there and a chance for me to up level and elevate in so many areas, because rather than trying to strap on that responsibility of just do it all yourself, I'm going to take a breath, I'm going to think, and I'm going to reach out and ask more than I think I need to. So as I look forward to 2023, I'm so glad that I got that lesson, because I know it's going to serve me as bigger challenges are ahead, as there will be. That's life. I now know that I learned that lesson through this experience. And you know what? If you're thinking about what we're kicking around next, that first day when we sent them back, the girls and I said, we're never getting another dog again. Closed door. 24 hours later, concluded, yeah, we need to get another dog. This time, we're going to make sure we're ready. We're going to do it when the time is right. We're going to do it together, and we're going to plan. So this way, all the pieces are in place. It's not all going to be perfect. There's still going to be plenty of adversity after the fact that we're going to have to adapt to, but if we reach out more and we work together, we have so much of a better chance to have this be successful. So as I look forward to 2023, it's not that I'm going to give any less effort to areas of my life. It's not that I'm not going to hold myself responsible to be 100% ownership over the things that I do. It just simply means that I am proactively going to make sure that I challenge myself every time I have that instinct to do it on my own. Make sure I challenge myself to ask for help and make sure that I accept it. Because I know when that happens, this is going to be a much brighter year and there are much greater things ahead. I also concluded that with all that heartache in the first couple of days of the year, something pretty freaking amazing is coming our way in 2023. So that's my question for you. What do you need to learn in 2023? I know I got my big lesson. It was a humbling one. It was a painful one, but a necessary and powerful one. So as you think about that, as you kick off this month, I challenge you to dive in, ask yourself those questions, and use that to supercharge this month and this year. So thanks for listening today, everybody. If you like this episode, please get out there and share it and spread the word. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have an awesome day. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it on social media. Also, if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs, please see the show notes for the link to my website. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.